Really what I do, I write short stories. Here are 3 small ones. I write small stories, small ones, not short. Big Ed, the pastor. She stood across the street from the church with a cup of coffee in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Every Sunday she did this. The coffee house on the corner opened at 7, and she would be there shortly thereafter, getting it to go. Then she would walk to the church in the middle of the block and just stand there under the bottle brush tree, smoking and sipping. It was one way to worship. Sometimes if it wasn't overly foggy or raining or so foggy that it felt like it was raining, she would go back and get a refill, stay until 10. Big Ed, the pastor, crossed 4 lanes of traffic one such Sunday between services and said this, "You know, I'm not overly pedantic as preachers go. It's a beautiful tree and street and day, but you're also welcome inside with us if you like. I just wanted to say. We're a warm, friendly lot, and all are welcome." "I'm not sure I know what pedantic means," she said. "Pushy?" "More like by the book, I think," he said. "Rules-oriented." "In this context, yeah. Holy, I guess," he said, suddenly craving a puff of her cigarette. "And maybe pushy too, yes. The point is, you're welcome inside, just saying." He had long, dark, kinky hair and was almost too big to fit under the tree. She offered him a cigarette. "No, thank you." A police car whizzed by with its lights flashing but no siren. "Are you Samoan?" she said. "Or Filipino?" Another car went by even faster, a beater with a dragging muffler and bumper stickers all over the back of it, not just on the bumper, on the paint. "I was born here, but my parents came from Tonga," he said. "Good guess, though." She nodded. "Yesterday," she said, "I was walking home and a tiny girl, maybe 3, waved at me, so I said hello. Her mother was buckling her onto the back of a bicycle. When I was only 2 steps past, feeling pretty happy about myself and the world, I heard the girl's cute little voice say to her mom, 'I know that was a boy.' Braggingly, she said this. 2 years old, 3 tops, imagine." Said Big Ed the pastor. "Right there on this block," she said. "Our block, the block that we live on." "What denomination are you?" "None," he said. He changed his mind about the cigarette and asked if the offer still stood. "Of course." She set her coffee down on the sidewalk and tapped him out one. While he smoked, he gazed across the street at the church, trying to see it from this young woman's point of view. Maybe for this reason it looked strangely unfamiliar to him. It looked like any other building on the block, but without all the windows and with a cross on top. If he didn't own it, he thought he could walk past and past and past without ever really noticing it, let alone going inside. "We're kind of our own denomination," he said. She picked up her coffee cup and they both smoked in silence until a bee from the bottle brush tree got caught up in Big Ed the pastor's amazing hair. "There's a bee in my hair," he announced. "Holy shit," she said, setting her coffee back down again. "What can I do?" "Nothing," he said. The bee didn't sting him because he didn't panic. He just waited for it to find its way out. This took about 30 seconds, which is a long time to have a bee in your hair, buzzing and crawling. When it was out finally, and the cigarette finished, Big Ed reiterated with emphasis that all were welcome at his church across the street. And then he said goodbye and crossed back over. She stopped coming to the bottle brush tree after that. He dreamed about her for many, many months, and some of the dreams made him wish he had invited her out to dinner instead of to church. That he'd picked up smoking again from her made him wish once on an overseas flight he hadn't crossed the street in the first place, after 5 years of clean air in his lungs. But he shut that thought down immediately by remembering the bee. To that bee and its family down there on the planet outside his airplane window, he knew he must be at least a legend. Maybe even, if bees can interpret the funny dances of human hearts, A downright hero. First touch. Church McPhee stepped off the curb at 19th and Linda and was not run over by a car. He considered this a minor victory. In fact, he used those exact words only 5 minutes later when he ran into Coach at the coffee shop and, at a corner table, over coffee, told the story. A minor victory, he called it. As was often the case, Coach had a soccer ball with her. Like the fluffy little apartment dogs others brought into the coffee shop, she kept her ball under the table. Her cleats, laces tied together, were slung over the back of the chair. I would argue, argued Coach, that not getting hit by a car is a major victory. Church McPhee looked at the floor, which was wooden and worn. He looked at Coach's soccer ball, how she rolled it back and forth a little under her shoe, and he tried not to tear up. That someone of her stature in the community, someone professionally experienced at keeping score no less, would so value his specificity. It was too much. It took him a minute to blink back the flood of feelings he was feeling, and when he looked back up again, Coach was holding a Ziploc bag with something in it. She set it on the table between them. Qu'est-ce que c'est, she said. He didn't speak French, but didn't need to. Drugs, he said. I know that, she said. What kind? He knew this too. He knew what kind. Nevertheless, he picked up the bag, turned it over in his hands this way and that, considering, then set it back down and said, meth. Coach tucked the Ziploc into her hoodie pouch pocket. What would be the proper way to dispose of meth? She said. Church McPhee said, well, let me tell you where I found it, Coach said. I found it at the playground. This one here, Church McPhee said, gesturing over his shoulder. She nodded. On the soccer field, he said. Then basketball court? Then tennis? His eyes went wide. Not the play structure. Between the play structure and the pitch, Coach said. You know that circular cement wall everybody sits on to change shoes? I go to bang the rubber crumbs out of my cleats, and I see this baggie sticking out of the wood chips, base of the palm tree. Just now? She nodded. I almost threw it in the garbage bin, she said, but then I thought, homeless people go through the garbage. Right, he said. I don't want to be a part of a problem, she said. Right, good, he said. He was wiping his hands on his pants. His right hand was wiping his right pant leg, and his left hand was wiping his left pant leg. So what do you think? Flush it, Coach said. Look, there's no need to panic, he said. No need whatsoever. I'm not panicking, Coach pointed out. What we have here is a question of conscience, he continued. Am I right? Coach rolled her soccer ball under her foot. Your conscience, he said, which makes total sense given your position. As a leader of children, I mean, and a pillar of the community. I get it. Honestly. I would feel the same way in your place. People look up to you, not just kids, let's face it. Professionally, morally, your conscience is very important. Mine, on the other hand, can take a hit. Let me sell it. What? That way we keep it entirely out of the water table and out of the garbage, Church McPhee said, because you're right, homeless people have enough problems. Aren't there places where you can bring things, prescription pills, she said, expired medicine? Do they take street drugs too? Church McPhee shrugged. Look, I don't want to be a part of a problem either, but what if, hypothetically, I already had a problem? And my problem was, let's say, money-related. And what if I could solve your disposal-related problem and $30 or $40 of my money-related problem in one swoop, he said. It would be as if you never found that bag in the first place. Who wouldn't want that? Church, she said. No, don't even, he said, holding up his left hand to stop her. Meanwhile, under the table, his right hand continued to rub his right pant leg. I hear you, Coach, loud and clear. And I agree with you almost 100%. Let's find another solution, he said. But before we do, I want to make it clear that With respect to the first idea, for your conscience's full protection, should you entrust me with the difficulty of disposal, I can absolutely guarantee you would not see one speck of any income incurred. She smiled. He did not. He was dead serious. Even if I accidentally bought you a burrito, for example, many years from now, he said, it would be entirely out of my other pocket, if you know what I mean. I'm very good at keeping my finances separate. Church, she said. For tax purposes, he said, resting his case. Then, forget it. Church, she said. There is a place, right? There are places. I'm right about this. He nodded. She picked up her soccer ball from the floor and stood with it pressed between her left elbow and her body. She slung her laced-together cleats over her right shoulder. The shoe in front rested on her right breast. Church McPhee remained seated. He felt stung, fixated, and for some reason remembered spending whole days in his childhood garage watching spiders immobilize and wait out existentially frantic flies. I can't tell you how happy I am that you're alive and unrun over, Coach said, patting her hand on his head as if he were 6. Where are you going, he wanted to know. To work out, she said. You already did. I'm going to work out again, she said. You know why? Church McPhee could not imagine and said as much. All of our bodies, every single second, are failing and failing us, Coach said. So screw the body. I'm brain building. Instinct is the thing. I'm not fast anymore. When the ball comes to me, I need every tool in the toolbox. I need more than ever to do the exact best thing. Automatically, to just know without even thinking what to do. Saying which, she dropped the Ziploc bag into Church McPhee's lap and left. He looked down at the bag, then he pocketed it and left too, wishing he spoke French. Wishing he had a sport in life, like Coach. Or a toolbox. Even just a wrench. Okay, last one. Weirdly, though, this is a true story, at least in terms of his role in it. He told it to me. It's also the weirdest and most unbelievable story I ever wrote. His dream was to be a barber, and the amount needed to become one back in 2008 was $6,000. His grandmother turned him down on grounds that he hadn't paid back the tens of thousands she'd loaned him between 1948 and 1970 for farm equipment. I was born in 1985, he argued. I live in San Francisco. I've never been a farmer and never will be one. She was furious. Then why the hell did you borrow all that money, she said. I didn't, is my point. Snake in the grass. You lie on a stack of Bibles, she said. I'm not a snake, he said, but she wouldn't be swayed. His parents, who would control her assets once the dementia was officially diagnosed, were out of the question. They hadn't spoken to him since 2003 when he turned 18 and moved halfway across the country with their small Midwestern town's only known trans woman, Evangeline. Kickstarter and GoFundMe did not quite exist yet, so his band played a benefit. This yielded $45, bringing the total amount needed down to $5,955. Evangeline suggested he pretend to have broken up with her in order to get back in with his folks before they got power of attorney. Not gonna happen, hon, he said. I'd rather stay working at the grocery store for the rest of my life. I'd rather work in a fucking coal mine than betray you. Pretend to betray, she corrected. Doesn't matter, it would hurt my heart just to pretend it. Aw, she said. They went to bed and made the best love ever. He must have twisted his knee, though, because in the morning it was sore. They left 15 minutes early for their brunch date in case they had to stop and rest or go real slow. But as soon as they started walking, the knee felt better. It was a beautiful morning in the Mission. Most people were still asleep or not out of their apartments yet. Corner store Cal was pouring water from a long-spouted pink plastic gardening can onto the walk sign post in front of his store. The water ran down the thick metal pole, flowing around the 4 huge bolts securing it to the cement and rivering along the sidewalk toward the curb. Sabah al-Khair, Evangeline said. Buena, said the shop owner. As soon as they crossed To boast, the temperature dropped by about 35 degrees. Evangeline wanted to duck into the Goodwill to buy a sweater or something. They had time. While she was looking at sweaters, he tried on suit jackets. He didn't have any suit jackets, let alone suits. You didn't need one to work in a health food store and play in a band. Plus, he was so scraggly, most suit jackets managed to make him look even less well-dressed. The last one he tried on was probably the biggest, but the color was an otherworldly blue-green, and the material seemed a blend of velvet and aluminum foil. He thought it might work over a t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Maybe ironically, maybe on stage. He was standing before a skinny mirror at the butt end of a rack of blue jeans, rolling up the sleeves when he felt a lump of something tap against his rib cage on the left side. He checked the outside pocket, then the inside one. There it was. It felt exactly like a folded wad of cornered, crisp paper bills. Yet his brain wouldn't let him quite register the thought until he had pulled it out of the pocket and not only laid eyes on it, but smelled that rancid smell of real American currency. The bills on the outside of the wad were hundreds. As he flipped through, he started to feel a little sick. Every single one of them was 100. Not knowing what else to do, he quickly stuffed the wad of bills back into the pocket. Then he took it out and put it in one of the outside pockets. Then he took it out of the outside pocket and tried to stuff it into his pants pocket, but it wouldn't fit. So he stuffed it back into the inside jacket pocket and just stood there under the store's humming fluorescent lights. He decided to roll the jacket sleeves back down. He took the jacket off, then put it back on. And sweating profusely, went to find Evangeline. On his way there, he rolled the sleeves up again. "You look like the 1980s, she said. She was holding a baby blue sweater still on its hanger. He said, "Eva." She looked up from his jacket to his face. "Oh my God," she said, "are you okay?" "There's money in it," he said. "I shit you not." "Money in what?" "This jacket. There's a wad of bills in the pocket." "How much?" she said, thinking ones and fives. "A lot. I didn't count." "A lot?" she said. He nodded. "Hundreds." "Well, Jesus," she said, "count." She returned the baby blue sweater to the rack and arbitrarily, without even looking, picked out another. This was yellow with pinkish beads embroidered onto it and no discernible pattern. He tried to count, but his hands were shaking and he kept messing up. She handed him the yellow sweater, took the wad of money, and started counting it herself. "I'm going to need steadier hands, huh?" he said, "to be a barber." He looked at the sweater. He looked at the sweater, which was hideous, took his jacket off and draped both garments over his arm. "You're going to need a lot of things," she said, without losing count. She was in the 30s, then 40s. At 50, she said it again. "You're going to need a lot of things," she whispered. 51, 52, but not 55, money. 57, 58, 59. She looked up and only mouthed the next number. No sound came out. 60. He was shaking his head no, and she had to agree. "We are not awake," she said, stuffing the wad deep into her purse. The thing is, they were. For brunch, he had lemon ricotta pancakes with real maple syrup, and she had poached eggs and a side of fresh fruit. No one made fun of his jacket or her sweater, although both were ill-fitting. They picked up the check, and the next evening at practice, each of his bandmates was presented, for their part in the benefit, a check for $11.25. Thank you.